If you have ever walked away from a conversation shaking, replaying words in your mind, wondering why someone else still has the power to disturb your peace, this message is for you. Because the truth is not that they are strong. The truth is that reaction feeds them. Some people survive on chaos. Some thrive on your emotional storms. They study your triggers the way a hunter studies footprints, and every time you react, you hand them proof that they still control a piece of your spirit. But what happens when you stop? What happens when you no longer flinch, no longer defend, no longer explain yourself to those who misunderstand you on purpose? Stay with this message until the very end, because somewhere in these words is the key that will free you from emotional captivity. Not by fighting harder, but by stepping out of the fight altogether. Reaction is the currency of toxic people, and once you understand this truth, you begin to see every interaction differently. They do not seek connection, clarity, or growth. They seek response. They survive on emotional movement the way fire survives on oxygen. Without it, they shrink. Without it, they lose shape. Without it, they fade into their own emptiness. Toxic people are not powerful because they are loud or aggressive. They are powerful only when someone reacts to them. The moment you engage emotionally, they feel alive. The moment you defend yourself, they feel important. The moment you explain your pain, they feel validated. Your reaction becomes their reward. Many people mistake provocation for strength. They believe the one who shouts the loudest holds the most authority, but that is not power. That is hunger disguised as dominance. Toxic individuals are often starving for attention, starving for control, starving for relevance. They poke wounds not because they are brave, but because they are insecure. They stir chaos not because they enjoy truth, but because they fear silence. Silence exposes them. Calm unmasks them. And that is why they provoke reactions with such precision. They study what unsettles you. They remember what makes your voice shake. They notice which topics make your heart race. Over time, they learn exactly where to press to get a response. Every reaction you give teaches them something. It teaches them where your boundaries are weak. It teaches them how to reach you. It teaches them that they still matter in your emotional world. And once they know that, they return again and again, not for resolution, but for reassurance that they still have access to you. Reaction is proof of access. It is confirmation that the door to your inner world is still unlocked. What many people do not realize is that toxic behavior often escalates when it works. When someone reacts with anger, the toxic person learns that anger is effective. When someone reacts with tears, they learn that cruelty yields power. When someone reacts with long explanations, they learn that confusion can be used as a leash. They are not interested in understanding you. They are interested in controlling the rhythm of your emotions. Your reaction becomes the steering wheel, and they grip it tightly. There is a deep illusion at play here. The illusion is that reacting will bring relief, that if you just say the right words, raise your voice high enough, or defend yourself clearly enough, they will finally understand. But toxic people do not misunderstand you. They understand you very well. That is why their words are so carefully chosen. That is why their timing feels intentional. That is why their behavior feels personal. It is not confusion, it is strategy. And reacting to strategy only strengthens it. When you react, you hand over your power in real time. You allow someone else to decide what kind of day you will have. You allow their mood to become your weather. You allow their chaos to enter your nervous system. And the cost is not small. Reaction drains energy. It disturbs sleep. It follows you into quiet moments. It replays itself in your mind long after the conversation ends. Toxic people move on quickly because they got what they needed. You are the one left carrying the emotional weight. There is also a subtle form of self-betrayal that happens when you constantly react. You begin to prioritize their behavior over your well-being. You start monitoring their moods instead of honoring your peace. You start preparing responses instead of protecting your spirit. Over time, you forget what calm feels like. Your nervous system stays on alert, waiting for the next provocation. This is how reaction becomes a habit, and habits quietly shape lives. Toxic people depend on this habit. They depend on you staying emotionally available to their dysfunction. They depend on you believing that silence means weakness. They depend on you confusing restraint with defeat. But restraint is not surrender. Restraint is awareness. It is the moment you realize that you do not have to attend every emotional emergency you are invited to. It is the moment you understand that not every comment requires correction, not every accusation requires defense, and not every provocation deserves a reply. The most unsettling thing you can do to a toxic person is to remove the reward. When there is no reaction, there is no transaction. When there is no emotional exchange, there is nothing for them to collect. Calm disrupts their pattern. Neutrality confuses their script. They expect fire and receive silence. They expect chaos and receive composure. In that gap, their power dissolves. This does not mean suppressing your feelings or pretending nothing hurts. It means choosing where your feelings are expressed. It means refusing to bleed in front of those who enjoy the sight of blood. It means understanding that your emotions are sacred, not public property. Reaction gives toxic people a front row seat to your inner world. Non-reaction closes the curtain. There is also a deeper lesson here about self-worth. When you react impulsively, you are often trying to prove something, to be understood, to be respected, to be valued. But the need to prove your worth to someone who devalues you is a losing exchange. Your worth does not increase because someone finally agrees with you. It exists whether they acknowledge it or not. Toxic people withhold validation to keep you chasing it. Reaction keeps you running in circles they designed. When you stop reacting, you step out of that maze. You stop auditioning for understanding. You stop negotiating your dignity. You stop offering explanations to those who have already decided their version of you. And in that decision, something powerful happens internally. Your nervous system begins to settle. Your thoughts slow down. Your sense of self becomes less dependent on external approval. You start responding to life instead of being pulled by it. Toxic people often mistake non-reaction for defeat because they do not understand inner strength. They only recognize visible struggle. They only feel important when they can cause emotional disruption. So when you remain steady, they may push harder at first. This is not a sign that you are failing. It is a sign that the old currency no longer works. When a vending machine stops accepting a coin, people shake it harder before they walk away. That shaking is not power, it is frustration. Reaction is loud, but it is fragile. It burns quickly and leaves exhaustion behind. Non-reaction is quiet, but it is enduring. It protects your energy. It preserves your clarity. It allows you to choose your battles instead of being dragged into them. Over time, this choice reshapes your relationships. People who respect you adjust. People who feed on chaos disappear. And in that space, peace grows. The truth is, you do not owe everyone access to your emotions. You do not owe everyone your explanations, your anger, or your time. Your reaction is valuable. Where you place it matters. When you give it freely to toxic people, you teach them that they matter more than your peace. When you withhold it, you teach yourself that your peace comes first. Reaction may feel automatic, but it is not inevitable. It is a learned response, and anything learned can be unlearned. Awareness is the first step. The next is pause. And in that pause, you reclaim your power. because the moment you stop reacting is the moment toxic people realize they are no longer rich at your expense. Not every battle deserves your energy, and this understanding often arrives after exhaustion teaches the lesson first. Many people spend years fighting arguments that never move forward, defending themselves in spaces where respect was never offered, and explaining their truth to those who listen only to respond, not to understand. Energy is life. Where you place it determines what grows. When you invest it in constant conflict, you slowly drain yourself while nothing truly changes. Some battles are not meant to be won because they were never meant to be fought. There is a quiet wisdom in recognizing when a situation is not asking for your strength, but for your silence. Not every challenge is a call to arms. Some are tests of restraint. Some are invitations to step back and observe rather than engage. The world often teaches us that standing up for ourselves means responding to every provocation, but real strength is not proven through constant confrontation. It is proven through discernment. Knowing what to walk away from requires more courage than knowing how to fight. Many conflicts are designed to trap your attention rather than resolve an issue. They pull you into endless loops of justification and defense. The moment you enter these loops, you are no longer in control of your time or your peace. You are reacting, not choosing. And when you react, your energy is no longer working for you. It is working against you. You become tired, irritable, and disconnected from your deeper purpose. Meanwhile, the conflict continues because it feeds on your participation. It is important to understand that some people do not want solutions. They want dominance. They want to feel superior by keeping you engaged in struggle. They thrive on your effort, your frustration, and your emotional investment. When you try to reason with someone who is committed to misunderstanding you, you are not building clarity, you are fueling resistance. Energy spent in these spaces rarely returns anything of value. Walking away does not mean you are afraid. It means you are aware. It means you recognize that your peace is more important than proving a point to someone who has already made up their mind. You do not lose dignity by disengaging from chaos. You lose dignity by staying in places that diminish you. Choosing not to fight every battle is an act of self-respect, not surrender. There is also a deeper cost to fighting unnecessary battles that many people overlook. Every argument you engage in occupies mental space long after it ends. It follows you into quiet moments. It disrupts your sleep. It clouds your thinking. This invisible weight accumulates over time, leaving you drained and disconnected from joy. Energy spent on constant defense leaves little room for creativity, love, and growth. You begin surviving instead of living. Not every criticism requires correction. Not every misunderstanding requires clarification. Some people will misunderstand you no matter how clearly you speak because their version of you serves their narrative. When you accept this, you free yourself from the exhausting need to be seen accurately by everyone. You begin to understand that being at peace is often more valuable than being right. There is strength in choosing your battles carefully. The battles worth your energy align with your values, your growth, and your well-being. They move you forward instead of keeping you stuck. They challenge you without depleting you. They require effort, but they also offer meaning. These are the battles that shape character rather than erode it. Everything else is noise. Learning to conserve your energy changes the way you move through the world. You become more intentional with your time. You respond instead of react. You listen more closely to your inner signals of discomfort and fatigue. When something begins to drain you, you pause instead of pushing harder. This pause is not avoidance. It is wisdom in motion. There is also a sense of liberation that comes with disengaging from unnecessary conflict. You realize that you do not have to convince everyone of your worth. You do not have to win every argument to validate your existence. You are allowed to step back, breathe, and choose peace without explaining yourself. This freedom is subtle, but it is life-changing. Some battles feel urgent because they trigger old wounds. They activate the desire to be heard, accepted, or respected. In these moments, it is easy to confuse healing with fighting, but healing often happens when you refuse to reopen wounds in hostile spaces. Protecting yourself sometimes means choosing silence where you once chose struggle. As you grow, your relationship with conflict evolves. You stop seeing every disagreement as a threat. You stop internalizing every opinion. You begin to understand that your energy is finite and precious. Where you place it matters. The battles you choose should reflect the life you are building, not the pain you are trying to escape. Over time, this shift changes your environment. People who thrive on constant conflict find less access to you. Conversations become more intentional. Your presence becomes calmer. You are no longer pulled in every direction by other people's emotions. Instead, you move with purpose, grounded in the knowledge that your energy is a resource meant to support your growth, not drain it. Not every battle deserves your energy because not every battle contributes to your becoming. Some only delay it. And when you begin to honor your energy as the sacred force it is, you stop fighting to prove yourself and start living in a way that speaks for you. Emotional control is quiet power, the kind that does not announce itself or demand recognition, yet reshapes every room it enters. It is not the absence of feeling, nor is it the suppression of pain. It is the ability to feel deeply without being ruled by what you feel. In a world that rewards loud reactions and dramatic displays, emotional control moves differently. It pauses, it listens, it chooses, and in that choosing, it holds authority that cannot be shaken by provocation. Many people confuse emotional control with coldness or indifference, but the truth is far more profound. Emotional control requires awareness. It requires the courage to sit with discomfort without immediately acting on it. When someone provokes you and you resist the urge to react, you are not denying your emotions, you are directing them. You are saying, I acknowledge what I feel, but I decide how I respond. That decision is where power lives. Those who lack emotional control are easily steered. Their moods rise and fall based on the behavior of others. Their peace is fragile because it depends on external conditions. A careless comment can ruin their day. A perceived insult can hijack their focus. This is not because they are weak, but because they have not yet learned to govern their inner world. Without emotional control, life becomes a series of reactions instead of a series of choices. Quiet power does not seek to dominate others, it seeks to master the self. When you remain calm in situations designed to provoke you, you disrupt expectations. People anticipate resistance, anger, or explanation. They prepare for battle. When they are met with steadiness instead, the dynamic shifts. Calm does not escalate conflict, it exposes it. It reveals who is driven by impulse and who is guided by intention. Emotional control allows you to see clearly in moments when others are blinded by emotion. It gives you space between stimulus and response, and in that space lies wisdom. You begin to notice patterns instead of reacting to incidents. You understand motives instead of getting trapped in words. This clarity protects you from manipulation, because manipulation relies on emotional chaos. When you are centered, there is nothing for manipulation to grab onto. There is also dignity in emotional control. When you do not allow yourself to be pulled into unnecessary drama, you preserve your self-respect. You do not explain yourself excessively. You do not raise your voice to be heard. Your presence speaks for you. This quiet confidence often unsettles those who rely on emotional reactions to feel powerful. They do not know how to compete with calm because calm does not compete. Emotional control does not mean you never express anger or sadness. It means you choose the right time, place, and people with whom to express them. You stop offering your vulnerability to those who will weaponize it. You stop reacting in spaces that are unsafe for honesty. Instead, you honor your emotions by giving them room where they can be held with care rather than exploited. Developing emotional control is a practice, not a personality trait. It begins with awareness. You notice the tightening in your chest, the quickening of your breath, the impulse to respond immediately. Instead of acting, you pause. That pause may last seconds or minutes, but it is enough to interrupt the automatic reaction. Over time, these pauses grow longer, and your responses become more intentional. This practice changes the way you experience conflict. You stop seeing it as something that happens to you and start seeing it as something you can navigate. You become less defensive and more observant. You ask yourself whether a response is necessary or whether silence would be more powerful. You learn that not every emotion requires expression, and not every expression requires an audience. People with emotional control often appear unbothered, but this is not because nothing affects them. It is because they have learned that their peace is more valuable than momentary relief. Reacting may feel satisfying in the moment, but it often creates long-term consequences. Emotional control considers the future. It asks, "What will this reaction cost me?" and often decides that the cost is too high. There is freedom in this restraint. You are no longer at the mercy of other people's behavior. Your mood becomes self-generated rather than externally dictated. This independence is empowering. It allows you to move through life with steadiness, even when circumstances are unstable. You become a calm center in a noisy world, and people sense that stability. Quiet power also deepens your relationships. When you are emotionally controlled, your words carry more weight because they are not scattered or impulsive. When you speak, people listen because they know you do not speak carelessly. Your boundaries become clearer. Your yes means yes, and your no means no. There is no confusion, only consistency. Over time, emotional control builds trust within yourself. You begin to trust that you can handle difficult moments without losing yourself. This trust reduces fear and anxiety because you are no longer afraid of your own reactions. You know that no matter what happens, you will respond in a way that aligns with your values. This alignment creates inner peace that cannot be taken away. The world may never applaud quiet power, but it always respects it. Emotional control does not need validation because it is rooted in self-mastery. It stands firm without force. It influences without intimidation. It protects without aggression. And in a world addicted to reaction, choosing emotional control is a radical act of strength. Detachment is not coldness, it is self-respect. And this distinction changes everything about how you relate to others and to yourself. Many people fear detachment because they confuse it with indifference, as if pulling back means you no longer care. But true detachment does not erase compassion. It protects it. It is the boundary that keeps your heart from being drained by those who take without giving, who demand access without accountability, who expect emotional labor without offering safety. Detachment begins the moment you realize that you are allowed to step back from what harms you, even if you once loved it, even if you invested time, hope, or loyalty into it. It is the understanding that staying connected to constant chaos is not proof of kindness. It is proof of self-abandonment. When you detach, you are not rejecting others. You are reclaiming yourself. There is a deep pressure in society to remain emotionally available at all costs. You are told to be understanding, forgiving, patient, and endlessly accommodating. While these qualities have value, they become destructive when they require you to tolerate disrespect, manipulation, or emotional neglect. Detachment is the moment you stop confusing endurance with virtue. It is when you recognize that you can be loving without being available for harm. Detachment does not arrive suddenly. It grows slowly out of repeated disappointment. It is often born after you have explained yourself too many times, after you have waited for change that never came, after you have poured empathy into a space that returned only exhaustion. At some point, your soul grows tired of begging for reciprocity. Detachment then becomes an act of mercy, not punishment. When you detach, you stop internalizing what was never about you. Other people's behavior no longer defines your worth. Their moods stop dictating your peace. Their inability to show up no longer feels like a personal failure. You begin to see clearly what belongs to you and what does not. This clarity is liberating. It removes unnecessary guilt and replaces it with grounded understanding. Self-respect is at the core of detachment. It is the decision to honor your limits even when others are uncomfortable with them. Many people benefit from your lack of boundaries, so when you detach, they may accuse you of being cold or distant. But discomfort is not harm. Their reaction is often a response to losing access, not to losing connection. Detachment does not close your heart. It closes the door to mistreatment. Detachment also allows you to stop chasing closure from people who cannot give it. You realize that some conversations will never bring clarity, only more confusion. Some apologies will never come. Some relationships will never become what you hoped they would be. Detachment accepts this reality without bitterness. It releases the fantasy so healing can begin. There is a quiet strength in no longer needing to prove how much you care. When you detach, you stop over-explaining your intentions. You stop justifying your feelings. You trust that those who truly know you will understand your silence, and those who do not were never meant to have unlimited access to you. This trust restores dignity to your emotional world. Detachment creates emotional space, and in that space, you can finally hear yourself. You begin to notice how certain interactions drain you and others nourish you. You become more selective, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Your energy stops being scattered across obligations and expectations that do not align with your values. Instead, it returns to you steady and whole. There is also peace in detachment because it ends the constant internal negotiation. You no longer debate whether you are asking for too much or expecting too little. You no longer rationalize behavior that makes you feel small. You no longer stay silent to keep the peace at the expense of your own well-being. Detachment simplifies life by aligning your actions with your truth. Detachment does not mean you stop loving. It means you love without attachment to outcome. You release the need to control how others behave, think, or feel. You allow them to be who they are while choosing who you will be in response. This shift is powerful. It moves you from frustration to acceptance, from resistance to peace. As detachment deepens, you begin to experience relationships differently. You show up without expectation, and you leave without resentment. You give freely where there is reciprocity and step back where there is not. You stop forcing connections that require you to shrink. This is not isolation, it is alignment. Detachment is not a wall, it is a filter. It does not keep everyone out, only what harms your sense of self. It allows healthy relationships to flourish because they are no longer crowded out by draining ones. In this way, detachment becomes an act of devotion to your own emotional health. When you choose detachment, you choose to respect yourself enough to walk away from what diminishes you, even if doing so is misunderstood. And in that choice, you discover that self-respect is not loud or dramatic. It is quiet, steady, and deeply transformative. When you don't react, the mask slips, and this is one of the most revealing truths about human behavior. Many people maintain their image through the responses they provoke in others. They rely on emotional engagement to uphold their narrative, their authority, or their innocence. As long as you react, the performance continues. Your anger, confusion, or defense becomes part of the script. But the moment you withdraw your reaction, the stage lights dim, and what remains is who they truly are. Reactions allow people to hide. They use your emotions as a distraction, shifting focus away from their actions and onto your response. When you become upset, they point to your tone instead of their behavior. When you defend yourself, they accuse you of being dramatic. When you explain your pain, they dismiss it as sensitivity. Your reaction becomes the cover they need. Without it, there is nothing to hide behind. Non-reaction removes the camouflage. When you stay calm, the usual tactics lose effectiveness. Provocation fails to produce chaos. Manipulation loses its grip. Suddenly, the person who seemed confident appears restless. The one who felt in control begins to unravel. This is not because you attacked them, but because you stopped participating in the illusion that kept their behavior hidden. Many people wear masks to feel safe. The mask might be charm, victimhood, authority, or superiority. It is crafted carefully and maintained through interaction. But masks require mirrors. They need feedback to stay intact. When you stop reacting, you remove the mirror. There is no reflection, no confirmation, no emotional supply. In that absence, cracks begin to show. You may notice that when you don't react, people often escalate. They raise their voice, repeat themselves, or become more aggressive. This escalation is not strength, it is panic. It is the fear of losing control. They are accustomed to predictable responses, and when those responses disappear, they scramble to regain balance. The mask starts slipping because the role no longer works. Silence and composure create discomfort for those who rely on reaction. They do not know how to engage without drama. They are used to pulling strings, not facing stillness. When you remain steady, their behavior becomes more visible, not only to you, but to others as well. Without your emotional reaction, their actions stand alone, exposed and unfiltered. This is why non-reaction often leads to accusations. You may be called cold, arrogant, or uncaring. These labels are attempts to provoke a response and restore the old dynamic. The moment you defend yourself, the mask is secured again. But when you remain grounded, the accusations fall flat. They reveal more about the accuser than about you. When the mask slips, truth surfaces. You begin to see patterns you once excused. You recognize how often conversations were redirected, how accountability was avoided, how blame was shifted. This clarity can be uncomfortable because it forces you to let go of illusions. But it is also freeing. You are no longer guessing or doubting your perception. What you see is what is there. Not reacting does not mean you agree or approve. It means you are no longer willing to be a participant in dysfunction. You stop feeding behavior that thrives on emotional engagement. You stop validating manipulation with attention. This refusal changes the entire dynamic. Power shifts quietly but decisively. There is also a personal transformation that happens when you stop reacting. You become an observer rather than a target. You notice how different people behave when they are not getting what they want from you. Some adjust and show respect. Others reveal entitlement, resentment, or insecurity. Either way, the truth becomes clear, and clarity is always a form of protection. When the mask slips, it can be tempting to confront or expose what you see. But often, the most powerful response is continued composure. Let behavior speak. Let actions stand without commentary. Truth does not require explanation when it is visible. Your calm presence allows others to draw their own conclusions. Over time, this practice builds inner confidence. You trust your ability to stay grounded even when others become unsteady. You no longer feel the need to manage other people's emotions or fix their reactions. You focus on maintaining your own balance. This self-trust is transformative. It makes you less susceptible to manipulation and more aligned with your values. When you don't react, you also reclaim your energy. Instead of being drained by constant emotional exchanges, you conserve your strength. You invest it in spaces that are reciprocal and supportive. You stop wasting it on performances designed to keep you off-center. This shift creates peace, not because others change, but because you do. The slipping of the mask is not something you force. It is something you allow by stepping back. You create the conditions for truth by refusing to react. In that quiet space, illusions dissolve, and reality stands on its own. And once you have seen clearly, you cannot unsee. You move forward with wisdom, no longer guided by appearances, but by truth revealed in stillness. Peace is chosen daily, not accidentally, and this truth reshapes the way you understand calm, healing, and inner strength. Peace is not a personality trait some people are born with, nor is it a reward that arrives once life becomes easy. Peace is a discipline. It is built through small, repeated decisions that often go unnoticed. It is chosen in moments when reaction feels justified, when anger feels righteous, when engagement feels necessary. And yet, peace asks you to pause, to breathe, to choose differently. Many people believe peace will come when circumstances change, when people behave better, when answers arrive, when wounds fully heal. But waiting for peace to be granted by external conditions keeps it out of reach. Life will always offer reasons to be disturbed. There will always be misunderstandings, disappointments, and challenges. Peace begins the moment you stop outsourcing your emotional state to the behavior of others and start taking responsibility for your inner world. Choosing peace often means choosing discomfort first. It means allowing emotions to rise without acting on them immediately. It means resisting the urge to correct, confront, or defend when those actions would only deepen conflict. This is not avoidance, it is discernment. Peace does not deny pain. It refuses to let pain dictate every move. Every day presents countless opportunities to either protect your peace or sacrifice it. The tone of a message, the energy of a room, the memory of a past hurt, each one invites a response. When you choose peace, you are not pretending these triggers do not exist. You are acknowledging them without letting them control you. This choice requires awareness because peace cannot be maintained on autopilot. Peace is often lost in the smallest moments. A single thought spirals into resentment. A single comment reopens an old wound. A single interaction derails an entire day. Choosing peace means catching these moments early. It means noticing when your thoughts begin to race or your body tenses and deciding to slow down rather than speed up. This is a daily practice, not a one-time decision. There is also courage in choosing peace because it often means disappointing expectations. Some people are accustomed to your reactions. They rely on your engagement to feel validated or in control. When you choose peace, you may no longer meet those expectations. You may become quieter, more selective, less available for chaos. This shift can be misunderstood, but peace does not require approval to be real. Choosing peace also involves setting boundaries with your own mind. Not every thought deserves your attention. Not every memory needs to be replayed. Not every fear needs to be entertained. Peace grows when you learn to redirect your focus, to ground yourself in the present rather than being pulled into imagined futures or unresolved pasts. This mental discipline is just as important as external boundaries. Daily peace is built through rituals of self-awareness. It might be a moment of silence before responding, a deep breath before entering a difficult space, a conscious decision to log off, step away, or rest. These acts may seem small, but they accumulate. Over time, they create a stable inner environment that is less easily shaken. Peace also requires honesty. You cannot choose peace while continuously betraying your own needs. Ignoring exhaustion, suppressing truth, or staying in environments that erode your well-being creates inner conflict. Peace asks you to listen to yourself. It asks you to acknowledge when something is no longer sustainable. This honesty can be uncomfortable, but it is essential for lasting calm. There is a misconception that choosing peace means choosing passivity. In reality, peace is active. It requires effort, attention, and commitment. It involves making choices that align with your values rather than your impulses. Sometimes this means speaking up calmly. Other times it means walking away quietly. Peace adapts to the situation without losing its center. As you choose peace daily, your nervous system begins to trust you. It learns that you will protect it from unnecessary stress. This trust reduces anxiety because you are no longer bracing for emotional impact at every turn. You become more resilient, not because life becomes easier, but because your responses become steadier. Peace also changes how you experience others. You become less reactive to moods and opinions. You stop taking everything personally. You recognize that much of what people do is a reflection of their inner state, not a verdict on your worth. This understanding creates emotional distance without disconnection. You can care without carrying what is not yours. Over time, choosing peace reshapes your identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who values stability over drama, clarity over chaos. This self-image influences future decisions. You naturally gravitate toward environments and relationships that support calm rather than disrupt it. Peace becomes not just something you choose, but something you embody. There will be days when choosing peace feels harder than fighting. Days when old habits resurface and emotions surge. On those days, peace does not require perfection. It requires compassion. It requires you to notice, to reset, to choose again. Peace is not lost because of a single reaction. It is strengthened by your willingness to return to it. Peace is also cumulative. Each day you choose it, you reinforce a pattern. Each moment of restraint, each act of self-care, each boundary honored adds to a foundation of calm. Over time, this foundation becomes strong enough to withstand storms. You still feel the wind, but you are no longer uprooted by it. Choosing peace daily is a form of self-leadership. It is you deciding how you will move through the world, regardless of how the world moves around you. It is an ongoing commitment to your well-being made in ordinary moments that quietly shape your life. Peace does not arrive by chance. It is built one choice at a time. Your silence